Diamonds from Dust: How Your Pain Becomes Your Purpose. I recently had the privilege of sitting down with Tamara Higgs-Grimsley, a woman whose very existence redefines what resilience looks like in human form. Her journey from trauma to triumph isn't just inspiring, it's revolutionary in the most visceral sense. What makes Tamara extraordinary isn't just that she survived her darkest chapters, it's how she's transformed those very pages into a masterclass on redemption that's changing lives across communities, especially for Black women who've been told their pain must remain silent. Have you ever looked at your reflection and wondered who's really staring back at you? The person society labeled, or the person you're truly meant to be? 3 years ago, I found myself standing in front of my bathroom mirror, mascara creating what I can only describe as avant garde art down my cheeks. Not because I was auditioning for some dramatic indie film, though the soundtrack playing in my head definitely deserved an award for most emotionally manipulative score in a personal breakdown, but because I had reached that breaking point we all eventually face. That moment when you realize you've been wearing a cape that nobody asked you to put on. And worse, the cape doesn't even match your outfit. This is what the Soft Girl Era podcast is about. It's for those of us who've spent decades in survival mode, leading teams, raising families, holding down households, carrying communities on our backs, and are finally ready to exhale, to shift from constantly grinding to finally grounding in joy, peace, and self prioritization. Because, contrary to popular belief, burnout is not a badge of honor. It's just proof that you're human, not superhuman. And what I've learned from Tamara Higgs Grimsley is that this journey begins with one profound truth: your past does not define you, your choices do. No matter what trauma, pain, or rejection you've experienced, you are not bound by your history. The power to change your life lies in the choices you make today and every day moving forward. Healing becomes possible the moment you decide that your story isn't over and that the labels others have placed on you do not determine your worth. I see so many of us, especially as Black women, carrying wounds we didn't create: generational trauma, societal expectations, church burdens, corporate battles, family dynamics that taught us to be everything to everyone except ourselves. We're out here earning PhDs in people pleasing while failing self care 101. But what if the very pain that's been weighing you down is actually the foundation for your purpose? Let me share something powerful I learned from our conversation with Tamara. Diamonds, those precious gems we all admire, aren't born sparkling in jewelry stores. They're formed under intense pressure, in complete darkness over time. The very conditions that seem most hostile create something of immeasurable value. You, my friend, are that diamond in formation. The pressure wasn't meant to break you. The darkness wasn't meant to hide you. The time wasn't wasted. It was all part of your becoming. When we look at women who've embraced this truth, the evidence is compelling. Take Tamara Robertson from Mythbusters, who now hosts the Tinkering Bells podcast. As a woman engineer in a male dominated field, she faced constant underrepresentation and stereotyping. But instead of letting those challenges define her, she transformed them into her mission. Today, she amplifies women's voices in STEM fields, normalizing their presence in spaces where they've historically been excluded. Her podcast doesn't just share technical knowledge, it dives deep into the raw personal stories of female makers who've overcome trauma and isolation to find success. What's remarkable isn't just what she's accomplished, but how she's done it by creating a space where vulnerability meets expertise, where women can show up fully human, scars and all, and still be recognized for their brilliance. Because, contrary to what society might have us believe, your emotional depth doesn't compromise your intellectual capacity, it enhances it. This is what healing looks like in action. Not a perfect linear journey, but a messy, courageous process of facing deep wounds with honesty. It's showing up with your broken pieces and saying, yes, these are mine. No, I'm not ashamed of them. And here's what I want you to understand about healing: it's a lifelong journey that requires faith, support, and action. The path rarely feels straightforward or easy. There will be days when old triggers resurface, moments when you find yourself slipping back into survival mode, times when the cape you thought you'd hung up somehow finds its way back onto your shoulders, usually right before a family gathering or performance review. That's normal, that's human, that's part of the process. What matters isn't that you never stumble, it's that you keep choosing to get back up. Keep choosing softness over hardness. Keep choosing boundaries over burnout. Keep choosing yourself, even when everything in your conditioning screams that it's selfish. At events like the Broadcast Your Authority podcast experience, we see this truth in action. Black professionals gather to share stories marked by adversity, feeling voiceless or overlooked within larger professional spaces. But these aren't pity parties, they're powerful reclamations of narrative. These gatherings center lived experiences through interviews and panels that encourage authenticity over perfectionism. Participants openly discuss setbacks alongside successes, creating a blueprint for others to follow. They talk about the promotions they didn't get, the relationships that fell apart, the times they felt utterly alone, and then they share how those very experiences became the foundation for their greatest contributions. What makes these spaces transformative isn't just the inspiration they provide, it's the practical next steps they offer. Attendees leave with actionable strategies for amplifying their own voices, for turning their pain into platforms that elevate others. Because healing isn't just about feeling better, it's about doing better for yourself and your community. This is what passion fueling purpose looks like. When we rise above our own struggles with resilience and faith, we gain the ability to help others do the same. Sharing our stories breaks generational cycles of shame and silence, especially for women who feel unseen or unworthy. I'm reminded of the powerful work happening at Lemonada Media, where content centered around overcoming adversity features Black women discussing how they've survived trauma while reclaiming joy and success publicly. What makes their approach so effective is that they don't just highlight the pain points, they showcase the breakthrough moments. Listeners witness firsthand how healing unfolds over time, not overnight, but steadily, with support and community resources. They learn that healing isn't a destination you arrive at, but a practice you commit to daily. One episode features a discussion about heavy topics that somehow manages to incorporate humor and honesty in equal measure, because that's the reality of healing. Sometimes you're crying, sometimes you're laughing, sometimes you're doing both at once. Sometimes you're having profound epiphanies in therapy, and sometimes you're having them in the cereal aisle at 2 a.m., and that's okay. That's beautiful. That's human. The impact of this work ripples outward in profound ways. Listeners report feeling less alone, more hopeful after hearing familiar struggles voiced out loud. They learn concrete coping mechanisms from hosts and guests alike. The shows help normalize therapy and self care practices while validating survivors' emotional realities nationwide. This is what it means to turn your pain into power for others. But let me be clear about something. This journey isn't about toxic positivity. It's not about slapping a smile on your face and pretending everything's fine when it's not. It's not about spiritual bypassing or rushing to forgiveness before you've processed your grief. It's about honest reckoning. It's about giving yourself permission to feel everything: the anger, the sadness, the confusion, the rage, and then choosing day by day to not let those feelings have the final say over your life. It's about recognizing that healing isn't linear. Some days you'll feel like you've conquered the world. Other days you'll find yourself triggered by something small, transported back to old wounds in an instant. That's when community becomes crucial. That's when therapy becomes a lifeline. That's when faith becomes a foundation. Because healing in isolation is possible, but healing in community is powerful. When we share our stories, when we speak our truth without shame, we create space for others to do the same. We break the silence that has kept generations of women, particularly Black women, suffering alone. We say, I see you, I hear you, I believe you. And most importantly, you're not defined by what happened to you. You are defined by how you choose to rise. So I challenge you today: stop waiting for permission to heal. Stop believing the lie that your worth is tied to your productivity. Stop accepting that your pain is just something to be endured rather than transformed. Instead, I dare you to imagine what might be possible if you invested as much in your healing as you have in your hustle. What if you approach your emotional well being with the same determination you bring to your career goals? What if you protected your peace with the same fierceness you protect your children, your team, your community? This isn't just about self care. This is about self reclamation. This is about taking back what was always yours: your right to wholeness, to joy, to purpose beyond pain. Start today. Choose one area where shame or old labels have held you back and take one bold step toward healing. Reach out for therapy. Journal honestly about your story. Speak affirmations over yourself. Join a community where vulnerability is valued. Whatever you do, refuse to stay silent. Refuse to stay small. Refuse to believe that your wounds disqualify you from your purpose. Because the world doesn't need more perfect people, it needs more whole people. People who have looked their pain in the eye and said, you will not destroy me, you will transform me. And as you transform, you will illuminate the path for others. Your healing becomes their hope, your courage becomes their catalyst. This is how we change the narrative: one brave choice, one honest conversation, one healed heart at a time. This is how dust becomes diamonds. This is how pain becomes purpose. This is how we rise.